On this episode of the Barricade Guard Show, I'm excited to be joined by my friend Steve Pokorny to discuss one of the biggest threats to marriages, to the healthy development of children and young adults, and to family life and vocations. Before we get started, I want to offer a caution advisory for today's episode. Steve and I will be discussing the topic of inappropriate pictures and videos, so you might want to watch or listen without young children around. My goal with the Barricade Guard is to help people strengthen their souls, their bodies, and their families. And if there is anything that we clearly want to barricade out of our lives, it's pornography. Pornography attacks our souls by distorting our view of the dignity of the human person. It attacks our bodies by often leading to self-harm and sexual dysfunctions. And it attacks our families by destroying marriages and robbing children of their innocence. So today, I'm honored to welcome Steve Pokorny onto the show to help us understand a bit more about this topic, what people can do to break free from the chains of pornography, and what they can do to help keep it out of their homes and away from their children. Steve is the founder and lead coach at Freedom Coaching and host of the Redeemed Vision podcast. He has a master's degree in theology and a deep devotion to St. John Paul II's theology of the body. All right, so Steve, would you like to begin by sharing a bit about your journey and what's led you to the point that you are now?
Sure, absolutely. And thanks so much, John, for the opportunity to come here to share today. I always like to say with people, I grew up in a house with a mom, dad, brother. I didn't have a dog. We have two dogs now. Life is perfect. But all that changed when my father came from a background of Vietnam. And I think a lot of that created some wounds in him. He was also somewhere along the line picked up on this idea of get rich quickly. And maybe it was the middle of the 80s, something like that, right? Life should be easy. And so he wanted to bet our house in the stock market. My wife said, my mom said no. My dad said, I'm going to do it anyway. So he forged her signature and the deal lost. And he thought this is the end, right? And so, but he also knew he was a vet. So at least we'd have something. So he thought the best way to take care of our family would be by killing himself. So he went into the garage. He turned on the car engine. Half an hour later, when my mom pulled him out of there, his short-term memory was gone. So, John, I grew up without a father, and it's been said in many cases, many homes, there is a fatherless generation, or generations now. And that is very damaging to especially a young male's psyche and his proper development, his psychosomatic development. Well, fast forward to when I was a senior in high school. Right before, during that year, doctors discovered that my father was losing a lot of weight, and because for a long time I really didn't know my father. He was in a nursing home, and it was really uncomfortable to be around him, and just uncomfortable, especially growing up. These feelings, these questions, thoughts. And this is somebody I didn't know, and I'm kind of have to go see him. And they discovered he was dropping a lot of weight. They ran some tests and discovered he had developed brain and lung cancer. And so he was moved to a hospice, and I went in and I sat with him, and all by myself. And I was just real with him. I said, Dad, you left me. You walked out on Mom. You weren't there for Brian, my brother. You abandoned us. And for a brief moment, his eyes cleared up and he said, I know. And that was his way of saying, I'm sorry. And 3 weeks later, less than 3 feet away, I lost my father for a second time. Now, to understand the next part of the story, I got to go back to the ancient year of 1992. And it's a year in which I'm walking down the street, about 8 houses down. Right in the middle of the street, there's a brown paper bag, and I open it up. I won the lottery. Hardcore pornography, torn up images, right there for me. Satan dropped a road apple for me. Well, I couldn't keep this to myself, and so I found another kid who, by the way, his parents are divorced. And he was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I want to see it. So he came over to my house. He's like, this is amazing. I'll give you $20 for it. So at 12 years of age, John, I became a porn peddler. Right? Maybe you'll call this episode a reformed porn peddler. Visits God. So something like that. Next year, I'd be hanging out with another friend. He's a latchkey kid. during the summer vacation. In his parents' bedroom, there's all kinds of hardcore videos. Right? Got into these, and I'm very excited. This is amazing. Right? I'm seeing things I've never seen before. But on the other hand, there's this guilt, this shame, this self-hatred that I get a taste of that, this ugliness, and I'm torn. Well, fast forward into high school, internet hits, and then it's game over, man. It's this experience of I have unfiltered, unlimited access, right? This is before the smartphone kicks in 2007 in many cases. And this is what I need, right? But I'm an extrovert. I want to be with people, but I also want people to just go away so I can go to my new happy place. So I'm stealing life from me. I'm stealing relationships from me. This emptiness is here. So I go into seminary for 4 years. There's no human and sexual formation really going on. There's no real understanding about what it means to be a man. I go do one very painful year of high school theology, and then I go to a little place called Franciscan University of Steubenville. Right. You might have heard of that. It's not Stupidville, people. It's Steubenville. Get it right, okay? I can say that I went there. So on the first weekend of every month that school's in session, they have something called a Festival of Praise. And imagine about 2,000 people praising God. And I heard a very important phrase the first time in my life, and this was from Isaiah 43:19. Behold, I'm doing something new. Do you not perceive it? Streams of living water will begin to flow. John, I'd been drinking the septic tank for a long time, for weeks on end, going to confession week after week, thinking this is the rest of my life. I will never be free from this. Well, God had other plans. And so that night I heard the voice of God in a profound way. And I had been started going to daily mass, receiving the body, blood, soul, divinity, love liquefied, God incarnate poured out for me so I may have life now and unto eternity. Well, 2 weeks later, on a Wednesday, just moved to gratitude for what Jesus had done to me after Mass. And then I realized it wasn't just Jesus. It was the Father. It was the one who I thought had abandoned me, had forsaken me, had run out on me. But instead, John, what he wanted to do was he wanted to hold me and love me. And he was revealing himself to me in a profoundly intimate way. And I heard for the first time in my life, you, Stephen, are my well-beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased. Me? You're pleased with me? Did you know what I've done? Yeah, I know all of it. And I want all of you. Now, I love you too much to leave you there, but I'm going to love you where you are right now. Right? It's a big deal. And just as these tears are rolling down my face, it happens. Boom, 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 boom. These chains hit the floor, John. This movement from lust to wanting to serve and sacrifice my sisters, right, was implanted here. And that lasted for about 4 months. This genuine freedom. I had no filters on my computer or anything like that, right? I have no desire. I'm working late at night, like I'm going to bed. And that lasted for 4 months. But like Peter, who took his eyes off Jesus, I sank back into the septic tank. And I fell hard. And I was like, what's going on here? God, why'd you allow this to happen? Right? I was doing amazing here. Well, he wanted to get to the root and also realize it's not on my own willpower. None of this is, right? And so I was led to 3 elements. One is called theophostic prayer, which is like smoke that leads to a fire, those emotions we have. Right? We want to get to those, right? Second was something called intensive trauma therapy. Sounds scary, it's not. It's drawing and writing. There's a lot of healing there. And that was the first week, John, that I actually talked to somebody about my issue of pornography. I opened this space up. And we've got to move from isolation to communio. It's really important. And so opening that, like walking out of the office that day, was profoundly liberating. And then third, discovering, especially through theology of the body, St. John Paul II's masterpiece, his magnum opus, discovering how to learn how to see the body. right? So, John, that's my story. And what I want to say here, just as an opening salvo, is God couldn't find anybody worse to get going with the work that I'm doing, right? And if I can get healed, anyone can get healed, okay? But for most of us, it's not a one and done. There's things to get to the root so it can be lasting healing. So let's jump from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's amazing to hear where you've been, where you've come from, and where you are now. What would you say to somebody maybe who says, well, that's nice. That's your perspective on it, and you decided to not use pornography anymore. But maybe they're unconvinced. Maybe they just think, well, I don't think it's that serious. I just think it's a harmless release for frustration or tension. And, it's nice that you're religious, but, that's not really my worldview. And I don't think it's a big deal. What would you say to somebody who kind of holds that view of pornography?
Sure. Let's start with that part of the body, right? Where most people who are engaging in pornography are engaging in masturbation. It's the only element of the body, right, that is meant for another. Okay. When we eat, we do that for ourselves. When we work out, we do that for ourselves. Obviously, it could be to lift heavy things so we can help others, right? But we do those on our own, right? When we use the restroom, right, we do that by ourselves. Please do, right? Typically, but this issue of our sexuality, it is designed not for ourselves, right? It's on a biological level, right? In order for the fulfillment of this, there's a desire to want to give of myself. It is calling to be received, right? This is on a biological level. But let's go, any of these questions, John, regarding especially issues of sexuality, I always like to say to people, start with the question of love. What is love? Right? Love is what we ache for, we yearn for. I like to say there's 6 deepest desires of the human heart: to see, know, and love, and have those reciprocated. To be seen, to be known, and be loved, which actually comes first, right? Now, so what is love? What is love, baby? Don't hurt me, right? Love. I will save your ears right now from singing, right? We like to say that there's 4 elements of love that go into this. First, it's free. We don't want to be forced or manipulated. It's got to be total, complete and utterly giving of self. It's got to be a faithful. We want that love to go on forever. And fruitful. We don't want to just know her name. We want to get to know the person. Even those who have said they have developed relationships with porn stars, I'd like to question that. But they're interested in know the background on whoever those little starlets are, right? So that's pointing to that desire. And you'll notice in those 4 elements: free, total, faithful, fruitful, I didn't mention God at all. Okay, this is what we want. This is what we yearn for and long for, right? Now let's bring God into this matter, right? Jesus Christ, we believe, is the fullness of God revealed. And God is love. So what we want to say is Jesus Christ is coming to reveal love. Well, this is found in the way and the person of who Jesus is, all 4 of those elements. No one forces him to do this. He does it freely, his gift on the cross. He says, there's no greater love than this, than a man gives up his life for his friends. He gives everything. He holds nothing back. He says, I am with you always, even into the world. He'll never abandon us. He'll never forsake us. He wants those spaces, my brothers and sisters, those little spaces that you're afraid that if I let anybody see here, that you're going to be rejected. And that's not who Jesus Christ is. And he says, I came that they may have life and life to the full. He wants us to have a fruitful life. So maybe we're Christian, maybe we're Catholic, maybe we grew up in the church, right? But we don't know him. This is what we're longing for, right? So all these 4 elements are both on the secular and the religious side. They're there, right? And it's what we are longing for. So let's compare this to freedom, to pornography, right? Let's use this as a measuring stick. Because again, John, I think our world wants to say there's no standard. And we want to say without standards, we have insanity. Okay, so let's compare that. What do we say love is? Love is free, total, faithful, fruitful, right? Is pornography free? Well, yes, you can buy free pornography, I guess, or get it free. It's readily available. But if you study any of the neuroscience on this stuff, it makes us anything but free. As countless clients, personally and professionally, we can attest the fact I can't stop. I don't know what to do. I'm trapped. I don't want to be here anymore. And I would humbly say, John, something I've been chewing on recently is the idea of pleasure. I believe the pornography is not pleasurable. It's a sensation. It might feel something. Pleasure doesn't give us a hangover. Pleasure doesn't trap us, right? Like we eat a good meal, and if we're constantly finding ourselves having to eat, we would say there's probably a problem there. If we find ourselves constantly having to scratch an itch to go towards with issues of sexuality, then there's probably a problem there. Okay, it's an inordinate desire, so we're not free. And then we know that between about half of those who are involved in the creation of pornography, who are on the screen, they've been trafficked. These are people who are forced into this, whether they're paid or not. Okay, their value is inherent dignity to be loved and not used. So that's free. What about total, John? Right? Right? Try to give yourself completely to your cell phone or to your laptop in that way. Okay? You're going to get yourself electrocuted. Okay? I don't recommend it. And I think this is why we feel so empty after one of these sessions, these viewing sessions, is because there's a longing, a desire to want to give ourselves completely, to be received completely, right? And because of the highly compulsive nature of this material, right, we find ourselves trapped, but I'm still empty. Faithful, right? Well, we don't really care what her name is, her dreams, her hopes, her struggles. All we care is about how that image makes me feel for that moment. So we use her, we abuse her, we lose her, and in the same moment, we are losing ourself. So pornography is for posers. It does not create more lovers. It actually steals our ability to love. And then fruitful, right? Yeah, there might be the spilling of seed, but it's not creating more. It's actually stealing life from others and ourselves, right? There's not creating a genuine, real relationship. You have a relationship with screen or device. We're not transhumanists. We're meant to be with others in reality. And this gift of sexuality is meant to be shared by a committed couple united in marriage for the whole of that relationship, right? And just one last thing on this, then we'll go. I mean, if you think there's not a problem with pornography, then tonight, go over to your neighbor's yard about 10 p.m. and just kind of creep into their bed, look in their bedroom and say, hey, what's going on in there, right? If you're in Texas, you're going to be shot at, okay? I'm not saying to actually do this, people, okay? But it's the same exact thing, right? Pornography was never, the sexual act was never designed to be viewed. It was designed, and we argue by God, to be participated in by a loving husband and wife who are completely entering into union with another to be open to the next generation. Any derivation from that, we're going to have a fallout from that, and there's going to be consequences.
So what would you say, I mean, without going into anything confidential,
Sure.
are some examples of maybe some damage that you've seen firsthand, whether it's to individuals, to their marriages, to their families, their children? What are some things that, you've come across and all the experience you've had that would be kind of warning signs to people who, maybe they're not having experienced these things yet, but maybe they can see how the path they're on could logically get there, and maybe they would say, well, I don't want to wait to the point where it gets that bad. So what are some of those things you've seen in your experience?
Sure. So you gave me a two-part question there, so I'll do my best here. I'll just give one example. In recent time, there was a client who came in. It was not my client, one of our coaches, and we found out very quickly that he was a narcissist. And if you know anything about narcissists, well, they know everything. They don't want help. He had been exposed to pornography when he was 6, and this was accepted in his household, laissez-faire, right? This is what we do. This formed him. There's an old phrase, John, you're a parent, right? How old are your kids again? Praise the Lord, brother. Praise the Lord, right? So you might know this one. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. Be careful, little ears, what you hear. What we see, what we hear forms us. The question is, what are we being formed by? Well, this guy had been formed by all of this pornography, all of this stuff. And it influenced his behaviors, certainly influenced his relationship with his wife, but it also, he influenced in his job so much that he lost an $83,000 a year job. Okay. His wife is in a bad shape here. She's dealing with her own betrayal trauma, especially because of his behavior, and putting their entire family at risk. And I've seen that happen. We've seen the gamut from 8 to 83. I talked to 4 weeks ago, a mother and a grandmother whose 15-year-old, this is two separate families. Both 15-year-olds were exposed at ages of 6 and 7. And there's a lot of confusion. And now they're finding themselves in high school. There's a lot of confusion. I don't know who I am, because our sexuality is tied directly into who we are as human beings. And when we don't know who we are, because we've been formed by this behavior and we're reinforcing it through more and more pornography and masturbation, then it steals our life. Okay. And so, so these are some of the experiences that we're seeing up close and personal. So the second part of that question asks is, right, what are some of the warning signs? Well, are we finding that we're spending more time online and off? Are we finding that when we're around people that we should be caring for, are we finding they are an obstacle to our happiness? Are we getting involved in life, or are we choosing to drive inward, to stay inward, not living inwardly and acting outwardly? Okay, outwardly in service of others, right? Do we find our humor that we're saying, like a bunch of from The Office, that's what she said? Are we using a lot of that humor, right? It's funny on the outset, but as we think about it, right, is there a way we can be funnier without being crass, right? How have we been formed by this stuff, right? And what are we spending our time with, right? It's been said, tell me about your pocketbook and tell me about your sex life, and I'll tell you who you are, right? These things form us and they influence here. And especially as a warning shot, if you're a father who's hearing this, you need to pay good, close attention, because those kids, they have cameras on 24/7. They are seeing and recording everything. And the movies we watch, the television shows we do, the way in which you treat your wife, their mother, right? All these things. And if it's been formed through the veil, through this lens of pornography, if we're blind, if we can't see others at all moments as persons, but instead we're programmed to belittle them, to demean them, to use them as objects, your kids are going to pick up on this, and you're going to create a generation upon generation, perhaps, of wounds. And these wounds go deep. And guess what? If we're Catholic, especially if we're Christian, we will be held accountable. Oh, wait, if you're a human being, you'll be held accountable for this, right? So these are some of the questions that I would have people ask, like, what are the warning signs you're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you kind of touched on, I was gonna bring up too, why it's so important, especially for fathers, to be modeling that behavior of what they watch. Even if maybe a father said, "Okay, fine, you've convinced me about the hardcore pornography, but maybe I watch shows that have some graphic scenes, and maybe the way that I talk about or treat women, isn't showing that I fully respect them, their bodies, the totality of them as a human person." And yeah, I really like how you kind of touched on the importance of fathers modeling that behavior, because of what happens if they don't. So thankfully, it does seem like more and more people are admitting the dangers of pornography. Even secular people, even non-religious people are recognizing and waking up to the dangers of it. But is it a losing battle to try to keep it out of our homes and off our devices? Is there really anything we can do, or do we just throw our hands up and say, well, it's going to happen, all we can do is damage control? What are your thoughts?
Yep, it's over. Let's quit. No.
Okay. Good talking.
We are people of hope, right? But remember, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not tactics. Hope is a statement. If hope is not backed up by action, then it's a pithy phrase. Just think of the 2008 election cycle, right? So we want real transformation. That's what we're looking for. So I want to make this very clear. At Freedom Coaching, we are not opposed to filtering devices or accountability software, anything like that, right? If we can slow that roll, really important. I would highlight for every single, I do have it here. My copy's beat to heck, so don't judge me too much. I recommend every parent go get a copy of this and study it. The first chapter, so it's called Glow Kids by Nicholas Kardaras. I can never pronounce his last name. I struggle with that. He lays out the case that no child should be in front of screens before the age of 10, no cell phones before 14, and social media never. Okay. The last one I would say, train your children how to use social media properly when they get to about age 16. But I think there's something to be said for this. Like there's another book out there that I've not read yet called The Anxious Generation. And it is these screens that are creating this anxiety. Okay. It's connected with disconnect. All right. So as John, we're using technology right now. God willing, we're using it well, right? Technology is a gift, as the church teaches us. But like a gift, like a knife we could use it to cut a steak, and the knife we could use to cut open my brother. Okay. One of those is going to be helpful. One of those is going to be contrary to what that knife was created for in the first place, right? Now, in this, you want to warn him before he goes for your steak. Don't just stab him. Okay. So with that piece, I have to say that. But with this here is these things are forming us in a very, very important way. And if parents are thinking they can just put one of those devices on there, one of those filters on there, okay, and just let them have it. It is like giving your kids a gun and saying, yeah, have fun. Okay. We do have to train them properly. We have to know what this stuff does. And it is forming us as in the way in which we are approaching the world, the way we're doing it. And I see this with my daughters. My daughters aren't involved with pornography, thank the Jesus. But like I see that when after they are on the device for a little bit, especially my youngest, like snarls and comes out, right? This rage monkey comes out. Why? Because we're cutting off her dopamine supply. We're cutting that off, right? So very practically, I was just watching a priest recently. I think this is brilliant. He challenged the college kids who were there. He had them pull out their phones and go to the color scale and put it all to grayscale. And he says, for Lent, go grayscale. And then I was watching another video this morning, in fact, talking about how if you do this, keep it there, you're going to be on your phones for 50 minutes less. Critically important. Why? Because it's not as interesting. The people on TikTok or Instagram, the influencers, they're just not that interesting to look at. I mean, the woman I was listening with, I can't remember her name for this, but I want to give her props. She said, "Who wants to sit around just watching spreadsheets all day? Like nobody wants to do that." Okay, but with that said, right, if you put your faith in technology, technology will fail you. Okay, we do live in a technological world, right? The robots are coming. That's a whole nother podcast. Okay, so this is something to be aware of. So the answer is going to come. You've got to have a transformation of mind, heart, and vision. We need to be formed in genuine intimacy, in our identity as a beloved son or daughter of God, and especially how to see. How do we see the body correctly? For those who've been formed by the pornified culture, the body is a means to sensation. It is a means to my ends, and that I use the person. But in truth, coming from Karol Wojtyła, aka St. John Paul II, the personalistic norm, the human being is the only being. This comes from love and responsibility. The human being is the only being who has been created to never be used as an object. That's from the negative. From the positive, the human being is the only being who is a gift and is only to be treated in this way. And ask yourself the question, do we want to be seen as a gift, or do we want to be seen as an object? Nobody, if they're honest, will say, I want to be viewed as an object and treated like. No, because we're unique and unrepeatable. So if this is true, this is what's going on in pornography. So there's an education that needs to go on here, right? So what we'd say, John, like also the church has a wealth of knowledge. Yes, you've got theology of the body, which is beautiful, beautiful things there. Start small. Well, it's kind of small, but smaller than theology of the body. It's a 1995 document. Very few people know about it. It's called The Truth and Meaning of Human Sexuality. It is excellent because, especially if we're talking to parents here, fathers and mothers, you are the primary educator in the faith. You are able to do this. Yes, you're a hypocrite. Why? Because we're all sinful human beings, right? If you're into pornography, you got to get it broken. We can help with that. But if we've made mistakes, age appropriately, we want to be real about those, right? I made mistakes, but I learned the truth. But then also, even though they were hypocrites, it doesn't counteract the truth. It doesn't contradict the truth. The truth is the truth is the truth. The truth does not contradict truth. Okay. So if what the church is teaching, and I encourage all of you, test it, compare it to what is being offered by the culture, which brings peace, joy, light, love, goodness. Test these things. And if what you're finding in the church is actually bringing that second set of that set of values, then we want to put our focus there and to put our efforts in this. So, and they don't give specific answers in there. That's what podcasts like this are about. Ask questions. Bring your questions to John. We want to find those out. But in here, right, we need to get educated on this. It's not just educated, but also this intimacy with Christ. Because it's not just, Christ doesn't just give a good example. He certainly does that. He wants us to come to live in his life. He wants us into intimacy with him, to live the life of the church, the life of the sacraments. So this actually transforms our desires. This is the ultimate answer here, John. So that when, because it's not if, but it's when our children are exposed to pornified images. Just last night, I was watching a movie and I thought I caught all of it. There's a makeout scene going on. I'm like, oh, right? They're going to be exposed to this stuff. So expose them to the good stuff, the true, the good, the beautiful, about how we see the human body, how we enter into relationships and love, and how we spend time off our phones and off of these things. We go into nature, right? Those things speak much more loudly, and that's our formation. And so when the lie is presented, because it's going to be presented, because the culture screams loudly, if they've been trained in the truth and that's perpetually reinforced, the lie is boring. The lie is like grayscale, like stupid. Bye.
Absolutely, yes. Let's unpack some of those things a little bit more, just to give parents some more practical tips of how to address this with their kids. So, love what you were saying about the best way to handle, approach this from a spiritual perspective first, as opposed to just from the technology perspective. And obviously, age-appropriate lessons in theology of the body can start, very early with kids. Yes. in age-appropriate ways. But when we talk about, okay, at what point do we actually broach the topic of inappropriate images in some way, even if we don't use the term pornography yet, even if we use something, people have recommended the book Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, something like that. But if, in your experience, I'm sure there's some leeway depending on each individual child, but is there kind of an age range that you find is a good time for parents to broach that topic with kids, to not ruin their age of innocence, but to educate them before they're exposed?
Okay, John, you are setting this question up perfectly. This is not an easy question, right? This is a difficult question. It's one that we are asked, and truth be told, I struggle like find the line, because you are the ones who know your children best. Parents are the ones who are to raise their children well. So all of we're going to talk here are just guidelines. Okay, this may differ for your family. First off, you're teaching about this stuff from the womb. We're teaching about the good stuff, the true, the good, the beautiful. How do you love your spouse? Do you go on dates? Are you celebrating? Are we showing the goodness of sexuality, the goodness of masculinity, the goodness of femininity? Are we, when we're in the bathroom, right? And our kid comes in, do we scream at them like, get out of here? What's the message we're sending? Something I'm doing in my partial or total nakedness, something's bad about that. No, the body is good. Nakedness is good as designed by God, right? So are we entering into those situations? Oh, hey, bud, what's going on? Let's say, yeah. So we get them comfortable of healthy understandings of nakedness, right? The naked human body is good as created by God, right? What's happened in our world, especially with pornography, we've been lied to. We've been cheated of the glory of God, right? And so in normal, healthy, honest situations where this is just a normal situation, like going on here. Third, I don't know what my number count is. I'll say number 3. Don't quote me on the counting. If the meaning of life is about making a gift, then get them into this idea of how do I make a gift of self-sacrificial love. This is what's at the root of sexuality. So, for instance, if say you have a 3 and a 5-year-old, you're making pancakes, delicious, right? And little Johnny comes up. It's like, me, I'm ready. I want pancakes. But he's the older brother. well, this is where we want to teach. We're going to actually have your younger brother go first, right? Okay, it doesn't mean the younger brother always gets it. You'll need to work that out. But we don't want to take from the younger, and we want to put us at service to the others, right? And maybe not to indulge too much syrup, because the sugar can make them crazy. That's a side note, right? So it's getting them, how are these different activities of service? Okay, we're going to the backyard and we're going to go play together, but we're also going to go to the backyard and we're going to pull weeds together, right? These different areas. But then there's going to be an area like it is teaching them about, okay, there are things that we're going to see. There's things that we're going to experience when we're online or when we're in movies or television, that there's going to be good things we can see, but there's going to be things that some people don't know how to see, and they want to bring this blindness out to other people. So I'll use an example from Matt Fradd when his son was 7, and they were driving down the road and sees one of these adult places. It's not a gentleman's club, because they're not gentlemen, and I want to take a club to them. But his son asked, "Hey, Daddy, what's that over there?" And he's caught off guard, and he's like, "What'd you say?" Just to kind of gather his thoughts. And he said, "Daddy, what's that?" So he brought then brilliant movement from the Spirit. He first said, "Okay, if you see a picture of your sister, right, and she's smiling and she's happy and she's like riding her bike, how would that make you feel? Happy and joyful and love it. Great. But what if you saw somebody hitting? What if you saw a picture of your sister getting hit, or your sister feeling sad and down? How would that make you feel?" "I'd be sad, a little angry, because my sister's not being taken care of." And the son had asked, actually, I want to make that clear, asked, "What is pornography?" It was a pornography shop. What's porn? And so that's what pornography is. It is something that will steal our joy. So we want to be surrounded by images that are going to bring joy. And there's other things we can do. That's some of the part of the work we do here in Freedom Coaching. And I encourage, if you want to go deeper into this, on formed.org, there's a series called Redeeming Our Vision. You can go deeper into this. All great information, but especially to help empower our parents. And how do we discern between these good images and bad images and be formed by the good, so that when the counterfeit is presented, it's just boring to us.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So now I'm going to drill down with some technology questions, because like you mentioned, technology is a tool. So, we can use it well. And there are some things parents can do, like you were talking about, to at least slow the flow, or at least kind of try to put some guardrails up to be helpful. So I'll share some of the things that I've tried to employ, and then maybe you can say what you think of them. If you think those are things that are, feel free. I can accept constructive criticism.
Bring
so
it.
If you say, nah, don't, try something else, whatever, I can take it. And then maybe I'll ask if there's other ones that you've had good or bad experiences with. So I'm an Apple guy. I use primarily Apple devices here in the house. And so Apple has parental controls. They call it screentime, where you can go in and you can very granularly set what's allowed, what's off limits. So some of the things I've done on our devices is I'll go in for the kids. And first of all, when it comes to websites, I don't just block certain sites. I start by internet browsing is off limits, and I'll add in what they need for homeschool or for a project or for certain things. So it's whitelisting instead of blacklisting. What do you think? Yeah, or nay on that one?
Yeah, your name for yay for whitelisting on there. All I can do is speak for myself. Like I have a 14 and 12-year-old daughters, and they don't have their own devices, right? So they're going to use ours, right? If they're going to use devices, they're not using in their room. The only exception would be is a friend called. We know they're doing video chat. They're keeping their door open. And again, I'm not just like leaving them to the wolves, right? On there. And they know, again, this is a matter of trust, right? We want to build, it's trust but verify. And also because the what's the goal of being a father or mother? The goal is not to raise good kids or raise good adults, is to raise saints, right? And we want this virtue to be inculcated, this virtue to be in a part of them, so that they are doing what they should be doing, and that what they're called to do, what is built into their essence, right? And without anybody, when nobody's watching. That's where we want to get, right? Some kids struggle more than others. And again, our brains don't fully develop till our mid-20s, so good luck with this, parents, right? So have having this help here. So I think a major part is knowing your child. Where are you at with her? So I think whitelisting can be very, very good. On those, I would, like, if you're talking about internet search browsers, I would get off of Google. I don't like Google in itself, but get onto Brave. Brave has a whole lot less ads. Get ad block, that especially for any of the stuff for YouTube. I would say there. And there's another web browser called Free Spoke. It's anti-pornography. It does not have, like, apparently you cannot get access to pornography in the way you can with other browsers. So that if they're going to search something, they're on there. But you also want to just make it like, how much time are we using this, right? Because again, we want to get them into the real things, real skills, and what are you doing here? It's not wrong to play games, but are we setting some limits on there? Maybe we're going to play a game for 20 minutes on there, and then we're going to go do something else in the real world.
Yep. No, I like all of those ideas, and I definitely second what you were saying about keeping devices most of the time out of rooms. We have a charging station in our living room that's where devices live at nighttime. They know there's no devices in the bedroom unless there's a rare exception or something like that.
Awesome.
But we don't take devices to the rooms. Another thing that I do, and I'll link below to a separate video that I've made about some tips parents can use and how they can do some of these screen time settings. But I like the idea, at least for me, of locking down their contact list. So my kids, they can't edit their contact list, they can't add to their contact list, and they can only message or FaceTime with people in that contact list. So they don't have the ability, if somebody says, hey, here's my phone number, here's my email address, message me, FaceTime me. They can't do that without me going in and explicitly adding that person to their contact list. So there's no ability to take stranger contact or anything like that. What do you think? Yeah or nay on that one?
Critically important, especially in the realm of predators, and we don't want to teach our kids to fear everyone. No, we are called to go out. We want to make that clear here, but this has become the wild, wild west in many cases, and there are people who are hunting your children. So we do have to make them very clear about this. Talk about stranger danger. What does that mean? But also, then stranger. It's not somebody. I mean, today the unmarked white van in the neighborhood is this little 3x4 device, right? That's basically what it is today. And so we got to be very, very careful on there. Who are you talking to? If something sounds too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is, right? And if you don't know this person in real life, then you have no business connecting with them, especially for the first time online. Okay. But then we get into this whole realm of AI, which is a whole nother thing where we know that AI is being manipulated by some entities to basically disguise his voices, disguise his things, is able to use the crawlers that are used for web crawlers to get information and bring those into a conversation. So you're going to want to make very, very clear, is this actually a trustworthy person? And this is our job as parents. So it's a hawks. And I think the basic thing underneath all of this, John, is for parents to remember, you are not your child's friend. You are not their friend. You are their father or their mother. And so if you got to drop the hammer, drop the hammer. But they're going to be mad at me. Okay, fine. Find another adult friend who can be a friend to you and get your soothing there. Find a counselor, find a priest, right? That's not where you're getting your soothing here. And because if we do our job as best of the ability here, the likelihood they have a much greater chance of living a virtuous life than if we just say, all right, it's been a hard day, fine, you can get on a device. No, we got to be very well aware of what the dangers are there.
Absolutely. So the last question I'll ask on that technology topic then is, are there any things that you've come across that you see people doing with good intentions, but maybe it's something that is easy for the kids to work around or get around? And so, maybe parents have somewhat of a false sense of security where they think, oh yeah, this is protected, my kids are good to go. And in 5 minutes, the kids can sidestep it and have access to whatever they want. Any things you've come across like that?
Number one, the child's friends. Know who their friends are. Know who the parents of those kids are, right? Because you might not give them a device, but they're going to school, right? How are you establishing? And I would say at the root of this also, just walking away from technology for a moment. Are you spending intentional time with your children? Do you know your children? Are you taking your children on dates to build this, what as these emotions get eroticized, this special time together? So if something happens, you've established this place and space of trust. The family who eats together stays together. The family who prays together stays together. Are we doing those two things? Are we creating the environment for trust? So when this comes in, they can bring this up, right? And even beyond that, you may not be able to get to, children can hide things, children can lie, right? So we want to trust but verify on those things. So and be aware of the apps. You're going to you have access to all. Again, I'm very hesitant about social media, just with the dangers of that. I would say no with this. Like, so my friend, you're going to just talk to your friends on a basic text message, get them approved on that list there, because we know that they can actually there's app though, it'll look like the icon on the screen. They'll click on it. It's a completely different app, or it goes in there and it gets them the work around there. So it really is about creating this environment of trust, but also you are very much well aware of what are the technological habits and creating pretty significant limits on that for time wise.
Very good. Yes. So we've covered a number of things parents can do for their kids, but kind of switching gears back to the parents. So let's suppose you have a father watching this, feeling convicted, wanting to break free from these chains, but needs some help, can't do it on his own. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you offer through Freedom Coaching, and maybe how it kind of differs from traditional therapy or counseling?
Sure. So number one, if this is an issue of yours, know that you're not alone. And we here at Freedom Coaching, we're here to receive you. So we don't do shame-based models or anything like that, right? That doesn't help. It doesn't solve the problem. We want to solve the problem, right? So go to check out freedom-coaching.net. A lot of good information on there. You can just also shoot us a message. I'll probably be the one to talk to you, or just if you're ready to go, do that. So if you think of counseling or therapy, typically that's the idea of archaeology, looking into the past, trying to find meaning in the past. Coaching is, I've got a house I want to build. I don't know how to do it. Let me call an architect. That's what we are. We're helping people to build their lives with very practical skills so that they can live a wholesome life. But this is where we're different than a lot of other organizations, and there's no bash to any other organization trying to help in the field of pornography or unchaste behavior. Is we are working through grace. Our number one standard is this is a work of grace. If this is a Steve Pokorny show, we are in deep trouble. Okay. But what it is basically get in there, that transformation of mind. What am I thinking? What have I been formed in? Transformation of heart, of intimacy with God, with oneself, with others, and of learning how to see the body correctly. Because the way in which we're being programmed with pornography is the body is an object to be used. No, the body person is a sign into the transcendent, that the body reveals God. So we want to make sure that we can enter into that to be able to see. And so take those three elements, there can be lasting healing if you'll enter fully into this. So if this is an issue here, drop us a line. Happy to speak with you. And I think you'll like what you find here, and most especially, you're going to like who you become. So you don't have to live forever with the guilt, the shame, the self-hatred. There's joy, there's peace, there's goodness waiting for you.
Yeah, and I definitely like to, try to end on more of a note of hope. We've talked a lot about, the damage, the problems. But one thing that I've heard you talk about before, and this is kind of referencing the aptly named title of your book, Redeemed Vision. But that idea of truly redeeming our vision. So it's not just about blocking everything out, but actually allowing Christ to transform us in a holistic kind of way, so that the way that we see the world, the way we see other human beings, is actually transformed and redeemed. And, I think this idea, is a beautiful reflection. We're talking about specifically on this topic, but I think this kind of reflects the Catholic idea of salvation, in the sense that it's a true transformation, not just a covering up, right? So maybe if you could just speak a little bit, to that idea and how that reflects, your perspective and what you do as you walk people through this.
Sure. What's the point of our life, John? The point of our life is to do the divine will. It's to love as Christ loves. We cannot love if we're blind. If we're blind, we cannot fulfill if we're blind in the sense of not being able to love, we cannot fulfill the reason we're on the planet. So this image, this idea of redeemed vision, is not simply about getting free from pornography or unchaste behavior. It's what's freedom for. How do we view that person that we drive past maybe 50 times a month on the side of the road? the homeless person, or when we go to get an overpriced latte at our favorite coffee place? Do we see the person who's there? See, the issue, this is what's most damaging, is pornography is inhibiting us from really seeing each other and really loving each other, of really entering into a relationship with the other, right? And this is why we feel the way we do if we're honest about the damage that's doing. But there's a better way to live our life. And so what this project is literally a cultural revolution of learning, that not just learning information, but it's this interior transformation that I'm seeing the person, I'm loving them. And in doing this, John, truth be told, take just the issue of in Ukraine, or take in Gaza, right? Two groups of people who are really, well, four groups of people, but two in each conflict, who aren't seeing each other as human beings. This redeemed vision at root is how we bring lasting peace to the world. That's what I'm all about. And I invite you, my dear viewer or listener, to enter into the same mission.
Thank you so much, Steve. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you being with us here today on the Barricade Guard Show. This was a great discussion. And thanks for all the good work that you're doing over at Freedom Coaching. I'll have links in the show notes below if anybody wants to connect with you. And hopefully they take advantage of that opportunity to finally break free from those chains. But yeah, thanks again for everything. It's been a great discussion. And God bless you and your good work, Steve.
Thank you so much, John. An honor to be with you and your guests.
All right, very good. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Steve. And if you didn't catch my last episode, be sure to check it out, leave a comment, and subscribe. As soon as I get 50 new subscribers to that video, or reach 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I'll be giving away this incredible St. Joseph and St. Michael Blackout Edition rosary, along with this Barricade rosary pouch. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you do to safeguard your soul and family from the dangers of pornography. Also, if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit from it as well. It really does help out me and the channel. And don't forget to follow the Barricade Guard on Facebook, X, and Instagram. The links are in the show notes below. And until next time, fortify your soul, body, and family.